Hallelujah. Blessed be the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth. We always give glory to his name. Um, I'm here once again doing one of my many interviews, but this time is with a brother who I've known for years, communicated with, and just known him for many years. And when I did my interview with Cohen, I believe he told me that this brother right here will be a good source, would be a good source of for an interview as far as the history of the drumming in Israel. He told me, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Cohen was the one that told me to contact you and to speak to you. We haven't been able to do it because, of course, he lives way in another state, and he doesn't often come over to New York City. But now with technology and the pandemic, we found ways to kind of make it happen. So I'm speaking about none other than my brother Cohen, Zadok, Benyamin. How are you, my brother?
So, yeah, I'm doing well. How are you, Chief? All
I'm
praises to the Most High.
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm glad to see and know that you're doing well. It's been a long time, but hey, we need to get this history down, and I like to get history down. I like to get it from the horse's mouth. I like to get it from the people that were there, rather than second and third hand um, information. Why not go to the sources while they here, and they could explain it to you better than anyone else that would attempt to try to give you some information that might be misconstrued or something that might not be correct. So, in lieu of everything that's happening, we see a lot of drummers, we see a lot of stuff that's going on. Cohen, um can you please give me a history of the drumming and what you remember from starting from Hashaba Yisrael, from the earliest inception of things that you remember?
Wow. First, I want to give honor and praise unto Yah Yahuwah, the creator of heaven and earth, our creator, our sustainer, provider, protector for all that he does. Without him, there is no us. Uh, that's a mouthful. That question is loaded. So I'll go back as far as I can remember. My mother, Gavret Yael Yabat Lewi, came into the knowledge of herself as a Hebrew Israelite. We Hashab Yisrael was residing on 539. So I was about 2 years of age when she came into the knowledge of herself. And so when I got to Hashaba, they were already playing the drums. My foundation in the drums is my uncle Ronald, also via Prince Ipur, who was one of my all-time favorite drummers. But when I got to Hashaba, I believe they were just beginning into the drumming. And at that time, the drummers that I recall who were there were none other than Prince Ipur, Adon Shemuel Ben Yehuda, Adon Amram, Adon Tobiah, Adon Reuben ben Boaz, Adon Yashadai ben Naphtali, Adon Micaiah, Adon Notare ben Yehuda, and Mori Hoshea. But I remember Mori Hoshea playing off and on, but the major group was all those primary men outside of Mori Hoshea. Mori Hoshea was an instrumental drummer in Hashaba's history, but as far as what we call the old Hashaba or the original Hashaba drummers, he started with them, but I think he kind of branched off and began doing some other work.
Okay. So that being your earliest memories, how was it coming into a Shabbat day? I mean, being a child, I guess at this time, 3, 4, 5 years old, when you start to remember really things and things start sticking to you? Like what were the things that you remembered? How was the sound in that time? Like when you come in into the Knesset, like how was it? Like just paint a picture of what you remember.
Well, I lived in Flatbush, and so I took the 12 bus from Flatbush all the way to East New York, and the
Okay.
bus was 4 blocks away. I believe the 12 bus stopped on Van Sicklen and Liberty Avenue, which was 4 blocks away.
Right.
You could hear the drums. You could hear the drums from that bus station. That's
Wow.
how incredibly the sound was that traveled in East New York.
Right.
And the closer and closer you got to the temple, uh, you were running. Number one, you didn't want to be late at Hashaba. Hashaba was a Levite, so there were certain protocols that we had that once the Torah was open and the Torah reading began, you were late.
Right.
Matter of fact, as soon as they started the services, you were late because most times in those days it was standing room only. That's
Right.
what I remember as a child. And there was 3 different parts of the temple. And so the priests and Levites were centered not in the middle, but they were the focal point. So you can get the sisters looking at the priesthood from one direction and the brotherhood looking at them from another direction. And then there was the children's side. And so we would hear the services through the speaker. We never saw Cohen Levy, we never saw Don Bakwa, the reader, or Cohen Mikhail, whoever the teacher was, or the speaker, the maftir. We never saw them. We heard them through the speaker. So it was like a movie going on in the speaker, but we never got an opportunity to see them.
Right.
When we started getting old enough and we were able to like go and play the drums, we got called by Principal and the other chief drummers to come and play it at a certain segment. Then we got to see the whole camp, so to speak. And so those are the key things that I remember running to get to the camp on time because you didn't want to miss anything. And those drums was calling you from all 4 corners of wherever you were coming from.
Mm. So just being around that age, 4, 5, whatever it is, do you what was the penalty for a child who just went up on the drum and started playing?
Oh, that was a maca. You couldn't do that, and most times, you at that time you really couldn't go onto the adult side of the building without permission. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And you
Right.
couldn't get as far as the drummers unless Principal called you or you ask somebody, hey, could you go and ask them, could I play?
Right.
Because they were so close to the priesthood that the priest at that time were trying to stay ritually clean. And so even the drummers at that time had to be in the same state of mind. So you couldn't get but so far. You really got close to the drummers when they came outside to play or when we went to Prospect Park or Rockland State Park. That's when you really got to be really close to the drummers and you just wanted to hold on to their drum. You didn't play nothing. You just wanted to hold on to the drum. And you were really, for me, I was intaking everything that I heard.
Mm. So and just for historical sake, so that we know, and I know that Cohen Shape was there. He's a couple of years younger than you, about 2 or 3 years younger than you. Do you remember like some of the songs and some of the beats that core of brothers, those drummers created? Are there some of the same beats that we still play today? Some of the same songs?
Absolutely. Hallelujah is one of my favorite.
Right,
That chant, we call them chants. That chant will be an everlasting chant. But Hallelujah was one. Some of the other sequences, we made names for them a little later. And
right,
so when you have your smooth, I call it smooth jazz tempo sequence, boom, 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 boom,
Right.
boom. When you have that,
What we call the jam today.
we call that the jam, right?
Right.
That didn't get coined until um, Ashriel, my era in Ashriel's time. Ashriel
Right.
being Cohen Levy. But they those guys made Where There's Peace, There's Love, Famous, Can You Tell the Truth Today? All of those songs that we rock today. That was some 40 something, 50 years ago when they were created. And you got to remember, from my knowledge, Prince of Poor is the root of that. And Prince of Poor, to me, how I categorize it is he played funk drums, Funk drums.
Right.
And so it was a combination of Afro Cuban conga with the music of their day and times, the late
Right.
60s, early 70s. And he played, Prince of Poor could make a drum sing.
Right.
He could make a drum sing. When you can make a drum sing,
Yeah.
it's like if you know Giovanni Hilgado, he
Yeah.
makes drums sing.
Right.
And so there were certain people for me that were key that made the drum sing, but it wasn't just Prince of Poor. Prince of Poor was a part of a greater institution, and
Right.
that institution was the drummers. And so every one of them played a vital role. Some of them only played their one and only drum, and there were others who were versatile and can play all of the drums. And
Okay.
so that sound, even to today, if you hear it and you let other people from other cultures, whether you say Cuban, Puerto Rican, Brazilian, Nigerian, Ghanaian, Zimbabwean, any drummer that's out there, when they hear the Hashaba sound, the Hashaba sound is unique.
It's unique. Okay. Yeah, because in speaking to knowing a little bit of the history that Prince Poor told me of how he learned, I think he was living in the Bushwick section of Brooklyn when he was younger, and his landlord was had a salsa band, right? And they used to practice, and him and the landlord, if I'm not mistaken, it was either Pacheco, I think, was their name, was the last name. The
Mm-hmm.
brother's name was Pacheco, and and their father had a salsa band basically in the basement, and they would hear them play. Say he would hear them play, and then when the adults weren't there, they would go down there and
Right.
start messing around, and that's how he learned how to hit them drums, and how to, when he came to Hashaba, basically bring it with him to Hashaba Yisrael. So, and then he
Mm-hmm.
told me like certain beats. He told me like the Where This Peace beat. He got the beat from the Foundation. If you ever hear, well, you know it because the way the runners played. He said he got it from Mary Wells. You Beat Me to the Punch. He said he got the conga from, and
Mm-hmm.
if you listen to it, you can hear the boop boop bop doom doom boop bop doom
Right.
doom doom doom. You can hear it in the song. So he said he
Right.
got it. He got that pattern from there. And the other stuff, he never really like said who created what, who created this, but I know that there were other drummers there that,
I think it was a
yeah,
combination of them because there were a few of them that came from drum corps.
right,
And so Mikai was one of them that I
right,
know
right,
came
right.
from
Explain. He
drum
he
corps.
did tell me that from the bugle corps, right? He told me that the drum
Right.
and bugle
And
corps,
so they brought in certain stuff, and that was the beauty of Hashaba with how Cohen Levy arranged the songs. They
right,
brought in music and they practiced to make it what it was. You know what I'm saying?
right. So in terms of because you brought up practice, Allen Iverson practice. This ain't the
Hmm.
game. We talk about practice. How
Hmm.
how instrumental is practice, or was practice to those guys? Do you remember any practice sessions or what they did back then in order to get good? Because I can't imagine that everybody was just like a drummer. I know how it works, kind of like drummers are made sometimes. You bring
Hmm.
it, somebody comes along new, then they begin to feel it. Um, I can't imagine that everybody just knew how to play drums. Was there like a practice regimen or something that they did? Do you remember that?
Okay. And to kind of answer your question and move into that question you asked is one, everyone's not a drummer. There were some people that liked to drum, but they knew that wasn't their thing on
The
a regular
14.
basis.
Right.
And so you had even Nasi Barak. Nasi Barak played the drums,
Right.
but I don't remember him being a part of the crew playing on Shabba. You know, Cohen Levy liked to play the drums, but Cohen Levy played his role. You know what I'm saying? So the
Right.
guys who were there on a day-to-day basis practicing, I remember the practices because at the time I lived in a building tenement that was owned by Hashabi Israel called Makanayim, and one flight up above me was Prince Zapor, and they practiced at his house usually on Yom Rishon, and it could be multiple times during the week, and that's how they got better. And so I would get called up to his apartment because I live right there in the building. Me and another one of my friends whose name is Omar, his mother's the Vedimania. We would go to the apartment and just, we would play with them, and they would
Right.
teach us little things here and there. But yeah, it was pretty intense. They would hash it out. As a child, I couldn't tell you all the things that they went
The
through,
details. Right.
but I know that they had to hash it out, and they sometimes could be there for hours. So it wasn't just like, okay, we practiced for an hour and then we going home. It would be for hours, and wasn't just congas. It was vocals. It was other instruments that had to be incorporated into the band at the time.
Right. Yeah. Explain that a little, because today we kind of just do congas, but back then, what were the other instruments that were um that were part of the band? Like what were the other instruments, and who were the players of those instruments?
Well, you had the trumpet, which was played by Don Tovia Ben Lewy, and you had the
Mhm.
saxophone, which was played by um, Don Ruben Ben Boaz. He's the brother of Prince Yiftach.
Right.
Then you had some people playing the flute on different occasions. Then you had Gavet Kakma, who used to play the chimes. They were little cymbals, she used to play on her thumbs and her middle fingers.
Right.
So there were a lot of different instruments. You might not have seen them or heard them on the Shabbat day, but there were other instruments that were being played. They might not also have been played at some of the concerts or shows that was given. However, it was a part of, bringing all the musical instruments together. And I say uh, other instruments tighten up the conga ear because you learn how to play with other instruments and not just pound on the skin.
Okay. So just moving off a little bit off the drums, what about Kolot Yisrael?
It's another powerful group. Gevert
Right.
Ora, Gevert Besima, Gevert Kakma, and at one time Gevert Basheba Bat Yehuda. They were all together, but most notably, who I remember was the three: Gevert Ora, Gevert Kakma, Gevert Besima. And those ladies could blow. I'm sure Gevert Ora is still blowing today. Powerful, powerful voices, and they were the famous people within the circle because when I was coming up, we were homeschooled in the school called the Israelite Institute. We didn't go to public institutions, so everything for us was centered around the community. And
Right.
so Gaveto Ra and that group, and then you had another group. I don't know what their Hebrew name was, but they called them the Johnson Boys, and that was Adon Baruch, Adon Yosef, and Adon Shema. They come from a family of singers, and they were powerful. Maury Hosea was another notable one. He took the youth, some of the youth, and had them singing Ariel, Kasida, Hayafa, Savlanu. It was a crew of them. Primarily after the Hashaba drummers migrated to Guyana, South America. But Hashaba, amongst a lot of different Israelite groups, has some powerhouse musicians and singers.